Hi, my name is Alex Dolphin and welcome back to another episode of Ex Ante. Today we're going to discuss the case Murphy v. NCAA. This case was heard in the Supreme Court in the year 2017 and the opinion was issued in the year 2018. Let's go ahead and jump into the facts of the case. So Congress passed an act referred to in the case as PASPA. PASPA was meant to illegalize sports gambling throughout the country, and it did that in a way where it would force states to not authorize sports gambling in their states. It grandfathered in Nevada, so it grandfathered in Las Vegas, but it made it impossible for new states to authorize sports gambling in their jurisdiction. So there was no public enforcement of this law. Rather, what it did was it created a private right of action for parties to sue states that authorized gambling within their jurisdiction. So the NCAA brought a suit against the state of New Jersey to enjoin them from allowing gambling to go on in their state. This case got appealed up to the Supreme Court. Murphy is the governor of New Jersey, and then the NCAA is the plaintiff. Murphy is arguing, and the state of New Jersey is arguing, that the law, PASPA, is unconstitutional. They're arguing that it's unconstitutional because it is a federal law that is telling states what they can and cannot do with their own legislatures. So that's the argument. It's a violation of the 10th Amendment, and it is a violation of the anti-commandeering principle. It is a violation of dual sovereignty because the federal government is acting through the state governments. So that's the argument of Murphy in the state of New Jersey. Now, the argument of the NCAA and the government, Paul Clement argues it in the oral argument, and basically he's arguing that this isn't a regulation of the states in their sovereign capacity. Rather, it's a regulation of the states in their commercial capacity. And he argues that the government, underneath the case Reno v. Condon, has the ability to argue or to regulate states when they're acting as commercial actors. So he's saying if you're regulating gambling, you're acting as a commercial actor because you're going to get money from that. And so the federal government can regulate states because they're acting as commercial actors and because they're not acting as sovereigns. The Supreme Court ultimately didn't find the argument of the NCAA and the government persuasive and held in favor of New Jersey. Basically saying that PASPA is a violation of the principle of federalism, the 10th Amendment, and dual sovereignty because a federal statute, the federal Congress, cannot tell state governments what they can and cannot do. The court talks about how, essentially if Congress wanted to regulate sports gambling, they could do that. It is certain that this is interstate commerce. Justice Kagan in the oral argument talks about how if you look at any state line where there's gambling, for instance, look at Las Vegas or Mesquite, or look at maybe any instance where there's a casino, you're going to see a lot of traffic towards those casinos. So it's certainly interstate commerce. And the Congress has the ability to regulate sports gambling and gambling in itself if it would like to, but it needs to regulate private actors directly. It can't regulate states and then tell the states that they have to regulate it, if that makes sense. So there's a distinction there in that if Congress has an enumerated power to regulate something, which they do, they can regulate interstate commerce, gambling is interstate commerce, then they can regulate that, but they have to do so directly. They can't regulate through the agent of the state because that would make the state an agent. It would make the state a little brother of the federal government. And the state is a sovereign in its own right. And a key founding principle of the Constitution was that there is dual sovereignty. There's the sovereignty of the state and the federal government. And we don't want to consider the federal government up here and the state to be down here, like the state is the little brother. And so Justice Alito, in his opinion, basically states that that's the reason for the holding here. Justice Ginsburg found the arguments that this is commercial activity persuasive, and she wrote a dissent. But this was a 6-3 opinion with Justice Kagan splitting. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye-bye.